Newsline with Faraz Shaukat Ali on TV1.
And a very good evening to you and welcome to Newsline Zoom. My guest this evening is Dr. Rukshan Bellana, who is the president of the Government Medical Officers Forum. Good evening, Dr. Bellana, and welcome to the Newsline Zoom.
Good evening, very good evening.
Basically, Dr. Rukshan, I was going to ask you, there is a great deal of consternation around the country about the state of Sri Lanka's National Health Service. And we also read in the press that there's some form of no confidence motion being brought against the minister, adding to all these problems, apparently. Now, is it true? Are we really experiencing a shortage of drugs, of sort of underperforming drugs? Is this true, and how did we end up in this situation?
Actually, to tell you, I had a meeting with the health minister, Mr. Kehelia, Dr. Kehelia Ramukpalla, about 6 months ago, and I predicted that this situation would come up as a result of too much of corruptions taking place. That's number one reason. As the National Medicinal Drugs Regulatory Authority, NMRA. Yes. And the second reason I told him is, we have in the post-independent era, the worst Director General of Health Services in the country, right? So we have almost no administration, good governance in the health ministry. There are administrative lapses as well as the corruptions. I have a feeling if you do a costing for this inefficiency, general inefficiency in administration, it is very much more than the corruptions. So corruptions, on top of it, general inefficiency have caused the situation where even the drugs are going to be dangerous to be administered. The doctors are in fear of giving the medicines to the patients because of the uncertainty of its quality. So these are the two reasons that I can mention here.
How did we end up in a position where some weeks ago I went to the Maragama Cancer Hospital, and speaking to some patients there, they told me that they had a lack of the medicine, for their chemo treatment, for example, and they had to sort of rely on the Red Cross Society. They had to do all sorts of things to get hold of this medicine. How come? How are we in this position? Why are we in this position?
No, actually, Sri Lanka historically had one of the best healthcare systems in the world, especially in the Asian region. We were able to boast as if we are the best. In fact, the WHO had applauded or appreciated our services in the past as one of the best. Unfortunately, during the last 2 years, I would say that our head of the department or head of the health ministry, the technical head of the Ministry of Health, that is Director General of Health Services, have been very inefficient, and he seemed to be having no idea about the management of the health services as well as the health, supervision.
Dr. Bellana, obviously you're talking about the Director General of the Health Services, but in so doing, and because he's not on this program with you to defend himself, we need to be mindful that what you're saying is your responsibility, and we will afford, obviously, the Director General an opportunity to respond if it is so required. Now, moving on, Dr. Bellana, what is the whole purpose in this exercise? Isn't it the ministry secretary who is the chief accounting officer for any purchases made by the ministry? And therefore, doesn't the secretary to the ministry, isn't there an obligation on his part or whoever the secretary is, or he or she, to ensure that quality standards are met. Why? What is the NMRA doing about this?
Yeah, the NMRA is the most corrupt organization in the country as per our organization GMOF, and we have revealed so many corruptions. It has given no objection letters for 785 number of drugs to be imported to the country for the past 1 year. And that 785 number of medicines are the reason that have caused allergic reactions and a lot of other side effects, leave alone the inefficacy of the drug. But we don't know about that. We have no data on that. But we know one thing: daily people are dying. Children, elders, young girls, young boys are dying because of the side effects of these drugs. Number one is that, and number two is chief accounting officer has nothing to be accountable for the purchases that we do unless we report to him of quality failures. There are technical guys who should provide technical reports to the health secretary in order for him to stop it. And the technical head of the health ministry is none other than Director General of Health Services. So we are worried about the Health Services Director General, not about the Health Secretary. And the Health Minister will be guided by these of course, both of them. But the thing is, Health Director General of Health Services is responsible to carry out or to implement 137 acts regarding to health services in the country. And because of that, he had to be made accountable. He's a person who receives public funds as his salary, and he is living on public funds. So he cannot say he has his privacy, or he has to be answerable to what I say. So if the people are dying daily out of the drug quality issues, then who is going to be responsible? Can it be the minister? Can it be the secretary? No, it is the Director General of Health Services, because he is the Director General of Health Services. So we need, if now take the issue in Peradeniya, 21-year-old young girl dies of a food poisoning after eating a so-called kottu. Now look at this, just entire scenario. Eating a kottu and getting food poisoning is another breach of health services delivery. You look at health services, you go and eat some kottu or any food, and you get a serious food poisoning. That is again public health, matter. Public health. There's some breakdown in the system, and then that person comes to the hospital, injection being given, and she gets a probable allergic reaction. That's a number two. And number three is she comes to the one of the best and largest teaching hospitals in Sri Lanka, that is Peradeniya Teaching Hospital, and died of the probable allergic reaction, probable shock that she developed as a result of that injection. Can it be? That is a third problem. So this is not only in isolation about drug, shortage or drug inefficiency or poor quality drug. It's about the breakdown in the entire health service, because you come to a hospital, you get an allergic reaction to a drug we give, but should you die of it? Because you are already in the hospital. That is why we are there for. 150,000 health workers are there.
But isn't part of the problem that Sri Lanka doesn't have enough foreign exchange to purchase sufficient quantities of the drugs?
This was the situation about 1 year ago. We didn't have enough money. Country was bankrupt. The country was not in a position to pay the suppliers. But the Indian government came up with a solution to provide us us some money on it was called Indian credit line, and
Yeah.
to purchase the drugs from the same country. And we have to do it, and we had a situation called emergency purchasing 1 year ago, because that was truly an emergency. But now after 1 year you can't say emergency, because we have to emergency purchases means a short term matter. But how can you have a everlasting emergency purchasing? This is what
So
happened to Sri Lanka.
what you're saying, Dr. Bellana, in short, what you're saying is that some people,
Yes.
some elements are taking advantage of that previous emergency and are continuing with this so-called emergency when there is no need to do that, and where we should be reverting to the original methodology of purchasing drugs.
This is why I said Director General. Okay, he's a general.
Yeah, but do you agree with what my statement is? My
I agree
statement
with
is
you.
that
It has no reason for a continuous purchasing on emergency basis. Continuously.
all right. Thank you. On that note, let's go for a quick break, and we'll be back. We are in conversation with Dr. Rukshan Bellana from the GMOF, and let's listen to this evening's headline news. We'll see you on the other side of the break.
News First, Newsline with Faraz Shaukat Ali on TV1.
Welcome back to Newsline Zoom. My guest this evening is Dr. Rukshan Bellana, who is from the GMOF. We're discussing the problems in the world of medicine in Sri Lanka, especially drugs and so on. Dr. Bellana, tell me, some weeks ago I went to the cancer hospital in Maragama, and I also went to the cancer hospital in Karapit here, following the misfortune of a viewer of Newsline who's suffering from cancer. On the first occasion, she had part of her chemo provided by the hospital. The balance she was given a chit, and the Red Cross Society helped. Then we had a situation on another go, the second time round, where they didn't have any of the drug, and the entire thing had to be got from a pharmacy outside. And the third go, the drug was available in full, in totality, at the Maragama hospital. Now tell me, doctor, why is there such instability? Surely we need to have stability in the supply.
At the moment, the health ministry has no good governance. It has no.
But you said you spoke about corruption and the administrative created bottlenecks. Tell me about that then. What is this corruption? Who's corrupt?
There is a purchasing authority that can be State Pharmaceutical Corporation or the Ministry of Health. And in order for them to purchase, you need something called registration from the NMRA, or that is National Medicinal Drug Regulatory Authority. So you need, registration, and then you need to purchase the drugs. And in the history, Sri Lanka had no problems of these type of things. Now what we have is there is heavy manipulations happening. Tenders are called. If your person is not going to get the tender, there is recalling of the tenders. And then if the recalling is tenders, by that you cannot still have it, you delay or cancel the tenders. This is the pattern in Sri Lanka. Recalling the tenders, cancelling the tenders, and bringing again notices on purchasing it. Like that, it happens until your person is to be selected as the supplier. This is corruption. Okay, so this corruption had been there for the past 2 years in very heavy level. So we need to do something, and the patients are suffering now. As your question goes, this is a big calamity. The level of corruptions are
Doctor,
so high, it has no regard to the
Doctor,
patient care.
on Newsline previously, we've spoken about the need to have transparency in all public appointments. And so I ask you, how is the Director General of Health Services, you've referred to this position as a very important position. How is that person chosen? What is the formula? Is there a scientific formula?
Yeah, we had a historically, we had one of the best Director General of Health Services in the country in the past. And now what has happened is the last Director General of Health Services was brought in by the cabinet of ministers, and they appointed him in the most corrupt manner. They had an interview.
So who's corrupt? The cabinet.
Sorry?
Is that what you're saying?
Sorry?
Are you?
Yeah, the cabinet did not, at that time, the Minister of Health was Pavitra Vanyaraj.
Okay.
She was from Ratnapura district. And the only qualification, most probably, the person who was chosen was that he was also from Ratnapura district. Other than that, there were more senior people. There were more qualified people academically.
Yes, I know. So that's what I'm asking you. What is the process? What's the process? Is it what the minister says, or is it by application? What's the process?
They call applications. They had interview process, and they, prostituted with the marking scheme. And these people, the people who, that was the minister, took a cabinet paper and misled the cabinet to get her favorite to be appointed as the Director General. And so many other senior people now who are working still in the ministry and elsewhere in the ministry did not get the opportunity.
Yes, Doctor, we're coming towards the end, but if I ask you, if somebody was to do an audit of the process of appointment of the DGHS, would it stand up to scrutiny, or would a proper audit reveal this sort of mismanagement in the appointment of the DGHS?
Yes, but the cabinet is responsible for the appointment and they need to do the audit. But forget about all these. Now you appoint a man, although he was not the best to be chosen, you can still say, look, we have sent off a Director General while he was on duty, someone called Dr. Anil Jasing. I hope you remember him. He was in charge of the Director General position, and he was doing very well. He was not so bad, but he was pushed out of the health ministry, and this person was taken. And I believe if he was pushed out, this fellow was taken in. This fellow has to be at least 10 times better, because Anil Jasing did not retire. He's still available in another ministry.
We have all respect for Dr. Anil Jasing. But basically, so what you're saying at the end of the day, the take home from this program is that the public, the sovereign people of our country, are suffering because of the inefficiency in the system of appointing public officials.
That's right. The entire cabinet should take the responsibility for this. I think health minister is only a person who is going through the dilemma as a result of these appointments, because Director General of Health Services is responsible for the drugs available in the country.
We are very familiar with the minister, of course, and that's part and parcel, I suppose.
He should be responsible for continuing with a Director General who is inefficient. As a result of the inefficiency, the corruption levels have risen much higher. And in fact, the health minister himself have told me he was, pushed heavily by the director general to appoint a CEO to the NMRA, the man he wanted.
Well,
So
these are fabulous claims, of course, which need to be tested. But if anyone feels that they need to have a right of reply, Navik Gunasekara from our program will be happy to entertain such call and make the position available, the slot available. But in the meantime, Sri Lanka's public continues to suffer because forever and a day, here at News First, we've always said that we need to have transparency when it comes to public appointments, so as best to represent the interests of the sovereign people of Sri Lanka. On that note, it's now time to say thank you to Dr. Rukshan Bellana. Thank you very much, Doctor, for being on Newsline Zoom. And it's now time for the primetime news. But not before I say to you, try and have a good evening as much as you can. And take care, and God bless you all.